Welcome to MidLIFE Matters, where we celebrate women's wisdom and wit. I'm Georgian Lussier, your host, and I'm delighted to introduce today's guest, Nicole Snurkowski, who is a mechanical engineer who consults with companies to improve their results through systematic methods. We're all going to be fascinated to hear about that, as well as some very interesting hobbies that she has. Welcome, Nicole.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Tell us about lean manufacturing. I know you learned about it working with an aerospace company.
Yes, I worked with Pratt & Whitney. I worked with UTC Corporation for 23 years, and 13 of those years in the beginning were with Pratt & Whitney. And when I joined the company in 1993, they had also just hired the Shingijutsu Corporation, a Japanese consulting firm made up of consultants that were disciples of Taiichi Ohno, who is credited with being the creator of the Toyota production system. I was fortunate enough to not only spend a lot of time working with these consultants and getting their direct mentoring and guidance, but also was one of the few that got to actually go to Japan and study there and tour the Toyota plant, make improvements in the Hitachi factory out there, and really solidified my understanding of the Toyota production system.
And were you the only woman that got to go?
I was the only woman.
Okay.
I was one of 5 that went from Pratt & Whitney, and there were, I want to say, several hundred people from around the world that went to the actual event. We were broken out into different teams, and on my team, a very international team, people from Belgium, China, etc., I was the only woman.
Okay.
On a 15-person team.
What is the philosophy that you learned through this system?
So the philosophy is largely Kaizen, and Kai meaning change, and Zen meaning an ideal state that you'd be achieving. The Toyota production system stems around the relentless pursuit of waste elimination, of the relentless pursuit of perfection. Kaizen, which I specialize in, and transformational improvements is what much is with my consulting firm. You're creating a production system, and you're making continuous improvements to that production system, but it's the system that's really continuous. Kaizen is your methodology for bringing improvement to it, and you do it as it's needed, as is required.
So I imagine there's a lot of design principles that support the philosophy?
There's a lot of lean principles.
Okay.
And they're terms that some people are familiar with, like just in time, make only what is needed, when it is needed, in the quantity that it's needed, looking at overproduction as waste. And then there's Jidoka, which is automation, or automation with a human touch, where you're imparting a human-like intelligence to your equipment so that it is discovering errors or potential errors before they occur or right at the time that they occur, so it doesn't propagate into the product that's going through.
And is it related to Ed Deming's theories?
Yes, Edward Deming was sent over there, I think it was in the 60s, but it was definitely when they were seeking to be on the uprise after the bombing. A lot of business people from America went over there, and Edward Deming was a renowned statistician and quality expert that went out there, and they really embraced him. He had 14 principles that he shared with them, and then the plan, do, check, act cycle, the Schwartz cycle of continuous improvement that he shared with them. In addition to adopting Edward Deming's philosophy, they gravitated towards our supermarkets here in America for their just-in-time philosophy, and created what's known as the Toyota production system.
And my understanding is when Ed Deming first came back to America, and he may not have been alone in this, there wasn't necessarily a great hunger for what he had to offer. It took some time because America was very prosperous and booming after the war, and that was a process that just needed to unfold.
Yes, it's interesting that he wasn't as well embraced in America as he was over in Japan. They were like phoenix rising from the ashes, and were like a sponge absorbing every bit of knowledge that they could. They really took advantage of that opportunity to learn from Edward Deming. So there's plenty of people in America now that appreciate Deming, but he was a man before his time in America.
So you do this as a consultant, and you first planned to go solo in 2008 when the market crashed. And then you did make the leap about 8 years later. Talk a little bit about how you decided to do that.
Yes, it was interesting. When I first went to make that leap in 2008, I was ready. The world wasn't.
Okay.
So, the market crashed. I lost a lot of money. I know a lot of other people did too. So it wasn't a good time for me to be able to invest in myself. And from day one, I only wanted to really get there on my own, to invest in myself. Mm-hmm. So in 2016, my sister, who had been fighting a battle of cancer for many years, finally lost that battle. She was my best friend, soulmate. A piece of me died with her. Mm-hmm. And it took me, I want to say, 4 months before I could even process what had just happened to me. The first thing I thought of is everything in my life that wasn't right. She really wished she had more time on the planet. Mm-hmm. And really, really valued life near the end of her own life. And it got me to take another look at the way I was living my life and to ask myself the hard question, is this really what it's all about? Are you really living your best life? And I had to answer no. No, I'm not happy in my job. I don't feel like I'm learning or growing. Sure, I'm contributing, but it's really not the best thing for me. There's other interests that I really enjoy, and I'd like to do them more. And I really would like to retire now. Is that possible? I started seeing entering work in the morning as going through a turnstile into a cubicle, and it was like prison. Mm-hmm. So I found an escape route. I approached my boss and asked him if I could be considered for the layoff that was coming, that he didn't know about, but I had the feeling was coming. Okay. Based on some of the things that were happening. And a couple months later, I got my wish, and I got a nice severance package, and I was able to start my way towards my business. And it was a scary leap of faith.
I was going to ask.
I did not have a plan.
Yeah, you didn't. I'm sure had moments where you thought, oh, okay, is this all going to, go in the direction I wanted to?
At first, I just focused on, wow, I've wanted the summer off in so long, I'm taking it off. Okay. I left my position in June, and I just enjoyed the summer with my 2 sons. Mm-hmm. And then August came around. I said, well, I better put my business plan together, so I did that. I better start a website, so I did that. And then I was like, okay, now how do I get clients? And that's where it got difficult. That's when I had to tap into some other things to help me out.
And I understand you work with partners.
Yes.
And if I understand correctly, one of the reasons it's difficult to get clients is because you do very significant work that requires a lot of trust on the client's part. It's not kind of an in and out quick thing. I can understand where if they've got an established relationship, you can, be part of that.
Yes, the work that I'm doing with the client, I'm really getting into the very detail of their business. Mm-hmm. So it involves a lot of trust. It makes them feel better if it's a large organization. They're not as concerned about the cost of that. Mm-hmm. Realized that I needed a partner in order to get my name out there and get people experiencing Nicole as a consultant and not just an engineer working in a company. Went through 3 before I gravitated to my current partner, and that partnership is going excellent. So it's interesting. A good friend of mine, who I hadn't spoken to in years, had written a book, and he sent it to me when I announced on LinkedIn that I was starting a business. And I saw the book, and I read through it, and I thought it was great, and I put it on the shelf, and I continued to enjoy my summer. I didn't call him. I didn't even think of networking. I didn't think of reaching out. I started meditating around September, October. There was a 30-day meditation that Bob Proctor had you do. It was a compilation of him working with Vishen Lakhani, and I did that every day for 30 days. But after about a week of doing it, I kind of lost consciousness for a little bit, and when I came out, I suddenly said, Rudy, oh my goodness, the wonderful man who sent me the book. I just put the book on the shelf. Why did I do that?
Okay.
And what I found out is through meditation, we really tap into our inner self, and we lose the noise around us. And the things that should be obvious as an opportunity, as an avenue, as a networking event, they were already there all around me. I just wasn't taking advantage of them. So now I'm a regular practitioner of meditation to help me stay grounded and see the opportunities that are all around us all the time.
Was that an online education for you? I mean, you're self-taught, more or less?
It was. The first exposure I had was a network marketing event called GoPro, put on by Eric Worre. And he had multiple speakers there. One of them was Bob Proctor. And Bob Proctor, his talk really resonated with me. So I kept looking up his presentations on YouTube, and they're all for free, of course. One day I stumbled upon that meditation. And I'd been exposed to yoga and meditation for years, but had never brought it to the level where you could bring it into your life and into your business. Using the law of attraction and meditation are a regular part of my life.
And are there other techniques you use to stay positive, particularly during that time when you were not yet earning anything?
Yes. Yes. Every morning when I wake up, the first thing I do is I say prayers, and I do I am affirmations. I am wonderful. I am beautiful. I am successful. I am a consultant that has many clients. Whether it's true or not at the time, if you say it, you're actually sending that positive message out, and you're believing it, and so is the rest of the world. If you send the negative energy out, that's what you're going to get back. If you send out the positive energy, that's what you're going to get back. And the more I did that, the more every day did get better, and it did get positive.
Was this unfamiliar for you to believe so sincerely in the power of things like affirmations, meditation?
It was. It was very different for me, because as an engineer, you know, that wasn't written in any of the textbooks that I studied when I went to college.
Right. What are the key steps in manifesting that you believe in?
Well, you have to have faith.
Okay.
So you have to ask, believe that you can receive it, and then receive it. But I like to add weight in between believe and receive, because that's where most people stumble, myself included. There is a pause before you actually receive what you're waiting for. The vision of what that might look like might not be what you're thinking. So there's a patience factor, there's a waiting factor, there's a faith factor that all comes into that manifestation when you actually receive it.
How about anger and impatience? What role does that have?
Well, anger gets you off your positive thoughts and your positive vibration. So whatever vibration, what energy you're on is what's sending back to you. So in negativity, that's what you're asking to be sent back to you. If you're lacking patience, I can give you a good example. Let's say you're waiting for your flight, and the flight gets delayed. It used to be that I would get upset, and it would really serve no purpose to be upset, but that would usually stumble into something else that would go wrong, and I would usually get hurt or trip on something, and I started to notice that. Now, as a manifester, when something gets delayed, I always say, ooh, this is interesting. What's going to happen next? You know, there must be something interesting that's going to happen. An example I can give you is I was delayed 8 hours before, and I called somebody and I said, hey, have you ever been delayed for an extensive period of time? What did you do? He said, I went through my phone A through Z and called people and just caught up with people. So that's what I did. And I had some wonderful conversations and did some wonderful catching up. And then when I finally got on the flight, I bumped into somebody at my new time of arrival that I wouldn't have bumped into if I had been on my original flight, which, you know, kind of told me, okay, so this is why I was delayed, so that I could bump into this person.
And is it akin to what people talk about with synchronicities, believing in how things come together and happen, and being alert to signs, and, and believing that there's something there that might inform even something else you might do, right? Like to follow up or...
Yeah, there's synchronicities that happen all the time. I mean, some of them are crazy simple. Some of them are complicated. You know, another example I can give you is my apartment was too cold. I had multiple things that I did not like about it. And instead of being upset about it and complaining about it, I kept saying, I would like an apartment that has better heat. And then I'd kind of forget about it. I would like an apartment that had a better refrigerator. I'd like to be on the second floor, but yet have nobody above me. And I was thinking, oh, that's not realistic, but I believed that I could have that. So I approached the management and said, I'd like to move to another apartment in this facility. And they said, okay, well, we've got one. Come and take a look. And but it won't be available for a couple of weeks. So I showed up on the very date that they said to, and they'd given it to somebody else. Because what I didn't realize at the time is they needed me to put a deposit to hold it, or else they were going to give it to somebody else. So instead of getting upset, I learned to say, oh, great, you must have something else on offer. And they said, yes, we do. Would you like to go take a look at it? So I went to take a look. It was on the second floor, so it was warmer. You know, it had better lighting. There was nobody above me. It had a walkout on the back end of it, so there's 4 floors on the back end, but on the front end of the building, there's only 2. So I was on the top floor, so something that seemed impossible was actually very possible. A brand new refrigerator, and everything is, you know, up to snuff of what I was looking for.
And was there a magnet on the refrigerator that said, "Welcome, Nicole"? What took you so long?
No, but there was soap there that said "Welcome."
All right. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about some of these interesting pastimes you have, hobbies, things you pursue. One is rock climbing, and one is you have a great blues voice. You're in a band. So tell us.
So rock climbing is something that I always wanted to get into, but my younger self was persuaded and talked out of it when I was in my 20s. In my 40s, one day I said, geez, what are the things that I've always wanted to do? And one of them was rock climbing. So I went to a gym. That was in 2012. And now I'm an avid rock and ice climber. I have all my own gear. And I hike all over, I rock climb all over the place. So I've rock climbed in Red Rocks, Nevada, up a 4-pitch climb out there. I hike at the Shawangunks in New York all the time, multi-pitch climbing. Climb all over Connecticut. And there is a lot of hiking involved, getting out to the crags to do the climbing. Mm-hmm. There's a whole huge community that I'm a part of, so there's multiple groups. It seems like I always have somebody to hang out with and climb with.
I believe Wallingford has a rock climbing center, right?
Yes, and Brian Rossetti,
facility.
The owner, was my mentor, who
neat.
taught me, showed me the ropes, so to speak.
Okay.
And the way I came about being in a blues band is I already knew I could sing. I sang in choir for a couple years. But I was singing one day up on the rock, climbing, while one of my friends was belaying me. And he said, I didn't know you could sing, Nicole. You sound pretty good. We've got a band. You have to join us. So now we have a band. And we haven't really named ourselves. We've just kind of temporarily called ourselves Us.
All right. And what venues do you see yourself performing in? Speaking of manifesting.
Oh,
let's do a little manifestation here.
I'd like to see us performing all over, but especially, I think, New Orleans. Somewhere where the
like
blues...
Mecca, right?
Somewhere where the blues would really be appreciated.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, we'll have to check back and see how... When that occurred.
Yes.
Okay, not how, not if. All
yes.
right. Now, we do tend to get wiser as we age. And if you could write a letter to your 25-year-old self and then your 40-year-old self, what advice would you give the younger Nicole?
The younger Nicole at 25, I would say you're not fat, so stop dieting.
Okay.
And I'd say learn how to manifest. Ask, believe, wait, receive. The 40-year-old Nicole, I'd say, yes, you can rock climb, get going.
Okay.
And you got this.
Okay, so do it now. Have you found in your work, I know you're in a fairly male-dominated profession still, I imagine, women mentors that help yourself, other young women, maybe ramp up that a little quicker in terms of professional advice?
For other women, I'd say definitely look for mentors, whether those be male or female. The other thing I would say is something that there's a lot of those untaught and unspoken things that you don't understand when you're in a corporation. And a couple of things I'd say is find a sponsor. Work very closely with this sponsor, help them out so they can help you out. You don't get to the higher position on your own, someone pulls you up there with them. So be of value and service to them, so people will help pull you up with them.
Do you see that in the effect in the work that you do? Do you see women helping women?
I didn't see it much
Okay.
in my career, but I see it starting to come into its own. And I see more and more women banding together and working together. And I only see this from reading articles in LinkedIn.
Right, okay.
It wasn't prevalent when I was there,
All right.
unfortunately.
Well, the one woman out of the 15-person team over in, right, in
Right.
Japan. Okay.
More like pioneering.
Pioneering, absolutely. We always close with a quote. And I looked at your Facebook page, and I saw this statement from a site called Trust Your Journey. Love it. And it is, your mind will always believe everything you tell it. Feed it faith, feed it truth, feed it with love. And I think your story very much manifests that.
Yes.
And I really thank you for sharing your career changes, the very personal loss of your sister, which I'm sure everyone is with you in empathy on that, and how manifesting can help us all achieve what our hearts desire, right?
It really can.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And please tune in to hear other fascinating women on future segments of Midlife Matters. I'm Georgian Lussier, your host, and thanks for joining us.